and welcome to another episode of LA Rams Central. We're doing this during the Saint Falcon game. It's I don't even know what the score is because I haven't been watching. Neither is Eric, so we'll be able to do our picks and be legit. We're going to do the second half. I'm Anthony.
And I'm Eric.
And here we go. We are starting with the second half games. So, I'm going to go ahead, and I'm just going to jump right in with the Los Angeles Rams.
Yeah, let's do it.
So, first of all, I'm going to get to the game in a minute. But what did you say when the Rams beat the Saints? What did you say you would be? Where would you be at when the Rams or if the Rams beat New Orleans? Do you remember?
I do not.
You said that you take them seriously, that they would be legit.
Yes,
right?
I did. Now I do remember that.
Yes, and that it was a big game. Okay. So I'm watching the NFL Network, which was my first, second, and third mistake. And then I had to watch the pitiful excuse for a human being known as Heath Evans talking. And he proceeds to talk about how the Seahawks are going to go 11-5, 12-4, and they're going to beat the Rams. So Heath Evans doesn't believe the Seahawks are going to lose a single game down the stretch and seems to think that Seattle's going to be able to go into Dallas with Ezekiel Elliott and roll like there's no worries. Now Sean O'Hara corrected him and basically said, no, the Rams are going to win the division and here's why, and they had a little back and forth. So I have mobile on my phone, and of course they decide to let me know every time, they talk about the Rams. So they did their predictions for the playoffs. And this sack of human feces, known as Heath Evans, proceeds to say the following two statements: that I believe the Saints are one of the best teams in football, and that I don't think the Rams are big time yet. I'm going to pick Seattle to win the division, and I'm going to put the Rams in the wild card. And as if that wasn't bad enough, 3 different times this week, leading into the Cardinal game and beyond, I've heard the following statement. Are you ready? The top four teams in the NFC, the Vikings, the Eagles, the Saints, and the Seahawks. I'm sorry, who's the 3 seed right now? Why is it that you can beat another team in a head-to-head matchup and they're still better than you? It's not like the Saints gave the game away. They got beat.
The only thing I can come up with from this is that because the Rams lost to Seattle, and that's my only thinking why he keeps saying it, is because the Rams lost to Seattle. But when you look at it, the Rams aren't as decimated by injuries as the Seahawks are. The Seahawks lost the top corner. They lost the top safety. The Seahawks have the run game. And the Rams have better wide receivers up and down, even with Woods still out.
Right.
So we're now, in a nutshell, is a football person going to take Russell Wilson over Goff? Probably more than half the time they'll take Wilson over Goff because he's proven. Goff still has a little bit ways to go. Now ask me this next year, and it might be more even or it might be more favored toward Goff depending on how Wilson plays. I think Wilson's always going to play at a high level for a long time, but it's just a matter of what's around him. See, they're cash strapped, okay? So they're going to be losing players because of monetary reasons. So that's going to limit Wilson and what he's going to do. The Rams are just getting started. They can afford to keep Sammy Watkins if they want to. They can afford Todd Gurley for the next few years until he hits that big contract. And yes, I think the Rams will keep Gurley around, of course. And Goff will, in 3 years, because I'm assuming they're going to pick up his 5th-year option, but in 3 years, he's going to cost a lot of money. And if he keeps playing the way he is, he's going to command a big contract, okay? But that's down the road. The Rams should still build and be a really good to great team, where the Seahawks, they were great, and they're starting to trend downwards. So when you look at it as a whole, maybe right now he's thinking, okay, the Seahawks over the Rams because they beat the Rams. But then again, when you look at everything else, the Rams are in a much better position than the Seahawks right now, both health-wise, both record-wise, and even schedule-wise the rest of the way.
you know, I almost can forgive the Seahawks. You know, him picking the Seahawks over the Rams. Still, I can almost forgive it. I mean, I really can't because the Rams were clearly the better team. And anybody, and here's a problem that I have. Heath Evans is supposedly a former NFL football player. Now, he played for the Saints and the Patriots and a couple other teams. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, he is the reason people make fun of football players. You want to know the definition of dumb jock? Just look at Heath Evans, okay? My fecal matter that I drop in the bowl every morning has more football knowledge in it than in the entire brain capacity of Heath Evans. It's just reality. You watched the game, right? I'm assuming you did. You're a quote-unquote professional analyst, and anybody that watched the Rams-Seahawks game went, wow, the Rams gave the friggin' game away. The Rams outgained Seattle. They outperformed Seattle. They just dropped the ball at bad moments, including the end of the game. You cannot walk out of that game in LA and go, Seahawks are clearly a better team. You walk out of that game, if you're logical, and go, the Rams are clearly the better team. If they can clean up the mistakes, that's a blowout. That's a blowout. And then you look at what Seattle's done at home this year with bad losses. They're one guy. They are the Green Bay Packers right now. It is Russell Wilson and nobody else. Their defense is giving up points. Their special team sucks. They have no running game. They have one wide receiver and a kind of wide receiver who shows up in between the 20s in Lockett, and they've got a tight end. That's it. They're a one-dimensional football team, and the whole thing is orchestrated around Russell Wilson running around like a lunatic because he has no blocking. And I'm supposed to believe they're a fundamentally sound football team, but I'll forgive it because the Seahawks won. What I cannot forgive, what I will not forgive, is you're going to sit here and tell me that the New Orleans Saints are better than the Los Angeles Rams? You're really going to tell me that the Saints are better than the Rams? On what planet is the Saints better than the Rams? They outperformed them. They outhit them. They outrushed them. They outgained them. They dominated the football game. And 26-20, if they went for it on fourth down, Eric, I'm not sure they would have gotten it. And that field goal is the difference between it being a 9-point game and a 6-point game. What I want you to explain to me is how are the Saints a better team than the Rams when they lost in head-to-head?
Well, I mean, you are taking it. You are taking it because it's one game head-to-head. It's not like the Rams and Saints play every year. And if the Saints keep up what they're doing and the Rams keep up with what they're doing, yes, they're going to play every year because they're going to be in first place or maybe the occasional second place. Listen, I mean, I can't argue with you when you talk about a head-to-head game. The Saints and the Rams have the same record. So it's hard because I want to say, the Saints have a Hall of Fame quarterback. They have a two-headed monster that the Rams don't have. To me, the tight ends are a wash. And the wide receivers are close, but because Watkins really hasn't done much this year, I give that edge to the Saints. Now, I give name recognition to the Rams defense with who they have, and they have Aaron Donald and Ogletree and Quinn and Tremaine Johnson, and I do like Marshawn Lattimore on the Saints, but he's a rookie. He's only going to get better. But as he gets better, guess what? Drew Brees isn't going to be there. But as of right now, like I said, I somewhat give the edge to the Saints. I know what happened in the game that they put against each other, and I was impressed big time with the Rams and how they were able to hold Drew Brees down. But it's the run defense that scares the crap out of me for the Rams. If they get a running back that gets hot, I think it's going to be hard to stop them. So I see where you're coming from, and I see where he's coming from, but I'm not going to totally 100% agree with what Heath Evans said regarding the Saints or the Rams, because he makes it sound like they're worlds ahead of the Rams. Well, that's not even close. They're basically it's a really close race.
So here's my breakdown.
Hold on. I hope to see it solved in the playoffs, and then we'll truly know.
Here's my breakdown. Okay, the Saints have a two-headed monster. Fine. okay? The Rams have Godzilla, okay? You can have King Ghidorah. The Rams have Godzilla. That Godzilla is Todd Gurley. And Godzilla beats King Ghidorah every single time. So you can have 2 heads, 3 heads, 4 heads, 95 heads. We've got Godzilla. Game over. Better running back than the 2 of them combined, period. That's just a reality, okay?
Okay. So if Gurley goes down, who's your backup?
Okay, Lance Dunbar's finally healthy. I'm really curious.
Okay.
I was excited. Now, I'm not saying he's better than Kamara, okay? And I'm not saying he's better than Ingram. But you didn't ask me who the Rams have behind him. The Rams have 1 running back because he's that damn good, okay? We don't need a 2nd or 3rd running back because he doesn't get injured, he's reliable, and he's a beast, okay? Yes, if Godzilla goes down, we're in trouble. Just like Tokyo's in trouble if Godzilla goes down when King Ghidorah's stomping all over the dang place. But 1 head, 2 head doesn't matter. He is a one-man wrecking crew, and it's not just Todd Gurley. We proved that against New Orleans. Jared Goff ripped off 300-plus yards passing and shredded that defense. And it wasn't just one guy he was going to. He was shredding the slot where Latimer doesn't play. Okay? Cooper Kupp had almost 100 yards receiving and was tearing it up. Tyler Higbee had a big catch against the safety. Now, you want to look at the defenses. Let's look at the defense. John Johnson's a rookie, and I think John Johnson's going to go down as one of the best safeties in the NFL for a long time. He is going to be the next Earl Thomas in the NFL. I believe that. And then we've got LaMarcus Joyner, who's a 4-year kid that has never had an opportunity to start because he's too short. And now he's starting at free safety, and he's killing people. He's lighting things up. He's intercepting the ball. He's pick-sixing all over the place. He's a stud. Tremaine Johnson is probably going to be let go at the end of the year because we're going to use that money to re-sign Aaron Donald and probably go get us another corner because as good as Tremaine Johnson's been playing, Tremaine Johnson is still a middle-of-the-road DB. And yet we're still shutting down the Saints receivers. You look at the offense side of the ball, taking Todd Gurley out of the equation. I agree with you on the wide receivers. But this quarterback thing blows me away. Joe Montana in 1981 was an unknown quarterback who never had a winning season prior to the 81 season. He was from Notre Dame, and they didn't give him the bus label, but everybody looked at him and went, well, he's unproven. We've got Danny White, who's been to a Super Bowl as a backup, and he's started for Dallas, and he's the replacement of Roger Staubach. He's clearly better. I mean, if we use that logic, right, then Joe Theismann doesn't win a Super Bowl. Phil Simms, forget it. He went against Joe Montana in 86. Am I supposed to believe that the 49ers at 10-5 were better than the New York Giants, who were 14-2 because they had Joe Montana and the Giants had Phil Simms? What about the Baltimore Ravens of 2000? They won a Super Bowl with one of the worst quarterbacks to ever put on the uniform. I take Colin Kaepernick over Trent Dilfer. And Trent Dilfer won a Super Bowl. You don't have to have a marquee quarterback to win the game. Okay? The 2001 New England Patriots. Outside of the referee that doesn't know what a damn fumble is in a divisional playoff game, you got to hand it to the Patriots. They still won with a backup quarterback that ended up becoming a starter. No one knew what Tom Brady was going to be, but the dude didn't lose a single playoff game in 2001. You don't need to have a Hall of Fame quarterback to be a good team. That's where we're at right now with these unprofessional, uneducated douche canoes that don't do their homework. They just look at the name on the paper and make a pick. It drives me nuts. Okay? Yes, Drew Brees is great. He's been to 1 Super Bowl. He couldn't beat a 7-9 Seahawk team in Seattle. I'm supposed to believe that this guy is miles ahead of everybody else in the field? Case Keenum's outperforming him. Outperforming him. Sam Bradford beat the Saints defense.
Drew Brees is taking a step back and hand the ball off more this year.
I agree.
That's why they have Ingram doing so well and Kamara doing so well. So Brees doesn't have to do it.
And that's
so unless Ingram or Kamara go down with an injury, okay, or out of the game for whatever happens to that, like I said, if Drew Brees is going to have to revert back to his 2016, 2015, 2014, 2013, throwing the ball all over the place. So, and he hasn't had to do that this year because the run game has been so strong for them.
In 2013 and 2014 and 2015, we're not. We've underutilized him, Eric.
You have underutilized him. That's the problem. they need to start going back to Gurley, especially getting into these later games, and especially going into the playoffs. If you think Goff's going to throw the ball for 300, 350 yards in the playoffs, they need Gurley the most bad.
Eric, they're just, look, first of all, Goff has done nothing to prove everything that I've seen from Jared Goff so far is that he can do it. He did it against Seattle. He did it against Minnesota. And he did it against New Orleans. Now, I know they lost 2 of those 3 games. But since the bye week, as we discussed, the Rams have said, we can win with Jared. I told you Jared Goff was going to take off after the bye week. And Sammy Watkins, for that matter. And Watkins has performed much better the last few games since the bye week than he did in the beginning of the year. But the reality is, the Rams know they can turn around and hand the ball off to Todd Gurley. And I believe they will start doing that, probably starting in Seattle next week. This week, it's Goff versus Wentz, and they're going to showcase it because, look, the Saints were weak last week in the secondary. That's why the Rams threw it so much. They didn't need to run the ball. Minnesota, they couldn't run the ball. They tried getting it to Todd Gurley in the passing game. Credit the Vikings. That's the team right now that I don't believe the Rams can beat. I don't believe they can beat them. I don't think they have the secondary to cover their wide receivers, and I don't think they have the offensive line ability to open up holes against that defense. Now, we may be wrong when they play each other again in the postseason, but as of right now, when I look at the NFC, it's Minnesota, Los Angeles, probably New Orleans, and Philadelphia. Well, actually, I take that back. Sorry. It's as of right now, it's Minnesota, Philadelphia, Los Angeles, New Orleans. And if the Rams beat the Eagles, then it's going to be Los Angeles, Minnesota, Los Angeles, Philadelphia, New Orleans. I think New Orleans has 3 big problems going against them right now, and they proved it in this game. Their safety play is weak. They don't stop the run consistently. And they have a problem with big wide receivers. Now, you put all of that together, okay, they'll be fine. But I look at Drew Brees' track record, and yes, he's a Hall of Famer, and yes, he's a great quarterback, and of course I would love to have him on my team. But you mentioned 2013, 14, and 15. Okay, they went to the playoffs, I think, once in those 3 years. I think one of those years, wasn't that 13, the year they lost to Seattle in the wild card game? I want to say that was right. Maybe it's not.
Right, it
was. Okay, I'm not impressed. Comes a postseason play, and Drew Brees struggles as much as these guys. We don't know what Jared Goff can do in the postseason. We don't know what Case Keenum's going to do in the postseason. We don't know what Carson Wentz is going to do in the postseason. But can we please stop acting like Drew Brees has never lost a playoff game? I'll tell you another one. Kurt Warner in 99. 0 postseason games. How did that work out?
Well, I mean, Goff isn't a Hall of Famer yet. So let's tap the brakes here.
Well, hold on. That's not my point. Neither was Kurt Warner in 99. What I'm saying is we don't know what Goff is going to do in the postseason. Just like we didn't know.
Anybody can get hot in the playoffs, okay? I mean, listen, the playoffs are going to be Goff's time to shine. Actually, let me take that back. The playoffs are going to be the Rams' time to shine. I think they're taking it all personally, not just Goff, because the Rams haven't been there in a while, and they have a lot to showcase. They have Gurley to showcase. They have Donald to showcase. They have Woods, Watkins, and Kupp to showcase. And, of course, you have Goff to showcase. So if Goff leaves them there and he keeps putting up the numbers he's putting up, he's going to be standing right next to Kurt Warner up there in camp. Okay? Is it too soon to proclaim that?
Of course it is. Of course it is.
But I'm just saying now, because it's such a passing league, expect Goff to, in the coming years, pass his arm until it falls off. Okay?
All I'm saying is in the postseason, we don't know what these guys are capable of. We know Drew Brees is capable of taking a big fat Stanley Steamer at midfield in the postseason. He's done it. He's done it before. We also know he's capable of leading a team to a championship. He's done it once. Okay? But what I'm saying is to sit there and look at this season in a vacuum, because that's what you have to do every year, because we can both agree on this. From year to year, it's so different. Next year, you might be right. The Rams might fall off and end up 8-8, not even in the conversation. Right? The Falcons last year were the beast of the NFC and damn near won a Super Bowl. Now look at them, right? So you have to look at the season in the vacuum. And when I look at the Rams this year, outside of Minnesota, the Rams get a really good test this week against Philadelphia. And if the Rams beat the Eagles, then I'm going to sit here and tell you right now it's the Rams and Vikings in the NFC Championship game. Ain't no one better. And you're going to see 14-2 versus 13-3 and have at it. And I got to give the edge of Minnesota because they were so thorough and complete in the beating of the Rams earlier this year. But to sit there and go, well, Drew Brees has done this in the past, therefore the Saints are the best team, that's lazy. That's lazy, and that tells me you've looked at zero film from this year. That all you've done is plop your rear end in front of the TV and watched your two favorite teams play all year, and you haven't done your work like me and you have done. You haven't put on the Kansas City Chiefs and New York Jets game. You haven't put on the Cleveland Browns and the San Diego Chargers or the 49ers and Bears game. You sat down and watched your Saints and your Patriots and you went Super Bowl because you're lazy and you're completely unprofessional. That's my point. The Rams are clearly the better team because that wasn't a 26-20 win. It was a much bigger pounding against the Saints than that. New Orleans did nothing outside of the Kamara touchdown run until late in the fourth quarter when the Rams had already packed it in and gone home. And even with doing that, they were able to turn it back on and shut the door. And in a vacuum, the Rams are clearly a better team. It's not hard to make that analysis. But I'm not saying that because I'm a homer. I was off the Ram train in week 3 of last year after they beat, who they beat? It was the Cardinals, 17-13. No, it was the Buccaneers. After the Buccaneer game, I remember telling you guys on the show, and I told my dad, we ain't winning nothing. We ain't even making the playoffs. I wasn't pounding the drum going, we're 3-1. I knew what I was looking at. So it just irritates me because me and you don't do that. Me and you watch every single one of these games or pay attention to them and look at the stats and watch the highlights and get into it if we don't have the ability to physically watch the game. Speaking of this, Rams-Cardinals, did you watch this game or was it not on out there in Chicago?
It was not on out here.
Okay. This was a big game for me. For me, I want to see how the Rams would respond having seen an opponent already once this year. And I was really impressed. The Rams jumped out on top 16-0, and they didn't let up. And they ended up scoring another 16 points, and the Cardinals ended up scoring, 32-17 or something like that? What was the final score? Let me take a look.
32-16.
Yeah, 32-16. So in the second half, the Rams and Cardinals went 16-16. After the Rams jumped out to a 16-0 lead, they were tied. They ended up scoring 16 and giving up 16. It was an impressive win because the Rams did it with offense, defense, and special teams. And this is like the third time now this year the Rams have done this, and they've all been on the road at Jacksonville, at New York, and now at Arizona. And the fact that they were able to do it on the road against an opponent they'd already seen was really, really impressive. Jared Goff was throwing dimes. Cooper Kupp was catching everything. The Rams running game, when they did call on it, was getting chunks. Sullivan was doing a phenomenal job of making line calls and picking up blitzes. I think this was the most complete game from an offensive standpoint that I've seen the Rams play this year. Now, a couple things went wrong for them. They kind of bogged down a little bit. They had an unbelievable interception. You didn't watch the game, so I'll tell you. The defensive end was engaged with the lineman, recognized Gurley out on the swing, disengaged, leaped up, and intercepted the football. It was a heck of an athletic play. That stalled the drive. And then there was another one where, you give credit to the Cardinals in that red zone. They locked it down, and Goff did what he should have done, which throw it away and kick the field goal. That happened a couple of times. So Overall, it was impressive for me because it was better than I expected it was going to be coming out of the fact that they had seen this team already once, coming off an emotional win against New Orleans at home. They had every reason in the book to pack this one in and to just jump out, bang, 16-0, and just shut the door. It was impressive. It was impressive. Your take?
When I look at what the Rams did, and really, there's really nothing really for me to add on this game because you basically said it all with doing both offense, defense, and including special teams in there. You look at the statistical leaders in the game, passing, rushing, and receiving, who had the most, and it's littered with Cardinals names. The stats can be so misconceiving in that nature because Goff didn't have to throw the ball up 30 times. Goff didn't have to run 20, 25 times in a game. And that means if they don't have to do that also means that the receivers aren't going to have, huge statistical games. Goff threw it up 31 times. Yeah, he had 2 touchdowns to pick, but, Gurley, 19 carries for 74 yards. They did what they needed to do, and what's even more impressive is Gurley was the leading receiver on the Rams as well, which goes to show you that the Cardinals weren't ready defensively for what the Rams had. Now, the Rams have averaged 32.5 points against the Cardinals this season, and the Cardinals have averaged 8 points against the Rams this season. So, we know already who the better team is coming into this game. We knew that the Rams, who have had not the greatest luck in the desert in years past, go in there, know to take care of business, not look ahead to Philadelphia, and let the Cardinals know quickly, hey, we're not letting you get back in any type of division race. We're not even going to let you try to get into a wild card because we know it's hard to beat a team 3 times in the season. So you're going to lose today. And even though, they gave up a big statistical game to Fitzgerald with 98 yards receiving and a touchdown, like you said, a lot of that came in the second quarter. That's when the Cardinals put up their most points, 13, and they scored a field goal in the fourth. But the Rams just kept adding on and adding on and adding on. And, the Rams scored in every quarter, and they pretty much hit their league average of points per game on what they're doing. So they wouldn't let up. They're not going to take a division opponent for granted, especially knowing that what they can accomplish this year. And McVay's got their head on the right track. Week to week, practice by practice, we're going to keep getting better. And the Rams went on the road. They did that. They're now 5-1. They're now 5-1 away from the Coliseum. And McVay has them getting better each week. And even when they lost to the Vikings, they still let up only 24 points, so they can still outscore a team if they give up 21, 24 points. And even though the Cardinals scored 16, the game really wasn't that close. Okay, It was 19-13 at halftime, but the Cardinals were never really in it unless the Rams completely folded in the second half, which they did not.
Well, they're a second half team.
Well, in this game they were first half team. Okay, they got out to a big lead. They didn't relinquish it. They didn't let the crowd get back into it, whatever the crowd was like there. I'm not sure. When your team is 3-9, the crowd starts getting more sparse. When your team is 5-6 going into the Ram game, it might start being a little bit more pro LA because now they're a lot closer. They're a lot closer. Between the two cities instead of being in St. Louis. So you have that factor, but there's really nothing more to add to this, except Blaine Gabbert again, 2 interceptions in this game, so he's pretty much continuing his at least 2 turnovers a game rate, and that's not going to win your football games, especially when your quarterback's giving the ball up.
Yeah, 2 things. The Rams going into this game had scored 85 points in the third quarter. Correct me if I'm wrong, but they scored 7 in this one, right?
Correct.
So that's 92 points they've scored in the third quarter alone this year. They come out of the gate and they score in the second half. And yeah, they scored more points in the first half than the second half this year. But the other thing I want to correct you on is that the Rams are 6-1 on the road. They're 6-1 away from home. Because the other Cardinal victory, the 33-0 game, was in London.
Yeah, I mean, you could throw that in there.
Yeah. I mean, it's away from the Coliseum. So.
I mean, technically.
Now, one last thing, Eric. Big deal here. The Rams are 9-3. Their first winning season since 2003. Guaranteed. So, kudos to Sean McVay and my LA Rams, our LA Rams, Ramley. We're out there celebrating like crazy, but there's more football to be played. I'm going to move gears here a little bit. Cleveland, San Diego. I'm sure we're going to touch on the Browns at the end of the show. Not much to say here. The Chargers took care of business. They beat an inferior team. They beat a team they should have beaten, a team that beat them last year. It got a little dicey there at one point, but the Chargers, they took care of business at home. They got the W. They're 6-6. The return of Josh Gordon, he played well. He had 4 catches for 87 yards, something like that. So he had a really good day.
Yeah, 87 yards. And what's interesting is how great of a day he had. Corey Coleman had no catches.
Wow, that's a big deal. But yeah, the Chargers won as expected, and congratulations to them. It's now a 3-dog race in the AFC West between the Chargers, Raiders, and Chiefs.
Yeah, I know we got a Chargers fan who listens to the show, and we definitely appreciate this. Listen, Phillip Rivers is playing some of his best football this season right now. The Chargers, very weird team this year, only because they started out 0-4, won 3 in a row, lost 3 in a row, won 4 in a row. Or what it seems like. Actually, I can bring up their schedule really quick because I know I was a little off because that would have made them 7-7, but lost 4 in a row, won 3 in a row, lost 2 in a row, won 3 in a row. And their game this coming up weekend kind of has me, with a raised eyebrow saying, is this a letdown game for the Chargers? And we'll get into that when we preview the Chargers game. But and you're right, it's a 3-horse race in the AFC West. But I really think that Oakland won't get it done. I think San Diego has a really good chance of winning that division now that it's wide open because the Chiefs decided to free fall and do a little bit more free falling.
Yep.
But the big test for them is going to be in 2 weeks when they go to Arrowhead, and it hasn't been kind to them in the regular season in years past. So the Chargers have it set up for them to where they can win this division. If Rivers keeps playing the way he's playing, and Keenan Allen, knock on wood, he is having an awesome year. Another over 100-yard game for him. And so far in 2017, he has over 1,000 yards receiving on 120 targets, 77 receptions. Good for him. He has stayed healthy all year. 3 games in a row where you have gone over 100 yards, 105 yards against Cleveland on Thanksgiving, 172 yards against Dallas, and when they hosted Buffalo, 159 yards. Dude is on fire.
Yeah.
And, if he can keep this up throughout the latter stretches of the schedule, Denver, San Diego, jeez, I sound like you. The Chargers are going to be a tough out if they get into the playoffs.
Listen, the last team to go 0-4 and make the postseason was the San Diego Chargers in 1992. The 2017 San Diego Chargers may be the second. So, interesting.
Sure, absolutely.
Interesting little
something
fun.
Something in the water with the Chargers.
Yeah, no kidding, right? Something with the name. Carolina at New Orleans, a big win for New Orleans. I knew they were going to win this game. They're just a better team than Carolina. They don't match up well against the Saints, and they proved it. And New Orleans played well. They ran the ball. Kamara had a huge day. Ingram had a huge run, showed some speed that I don't think a lot of people thought he had. Big win for New Orleans, getting separation from Carolina. I do believe Carolina is, of all the teams, I think Carolina or Seattle, one of those two are going to end up being out of the postseason this year. I just feel it. I don't know which one, but one of them could be out, maybe both. But that would take an epic collapse for it to be both. I do think one of them will end up being on the outside looking in, but it's going to depend on what Atlanta does tonight. But I was impressed with the Saints. I knew they were going to win. Dome Patrol was in full force, and there they were again.
Yeah, Carolina is a tough team to actually analyze. And I say that because, Cam has his good days, Cam has his bad days, just like any other quarterback. But they traded Benjamin. Funchess didn't have the greatest game. And, their running back situation, commit to a guy. Commit to a guy, gives him 75% of the carries, and if that ends up being McCaffrey, we'll let it be. I know they're very loyal to Jonathan Stewart, and I applaud them for that, but sometimes you just got to be like, hey, you know what? Be our goal line back. Be an extra weapon in case Cam wants to hand the ball off, inside the 5. They need their biggest need right now is a wide receiver. Now, do I think that that's going to hamper them and get them out of the playoffs? Well, the one game up on the Falcons, they have that tiebreaker currently because they play them in a couple of weeks. But, and depending on if the Falcons beat the Saints on Thursday night, which we're going to get to, the Panthers are going to be tough only because their defense keeps them in a lot of games. And that is the only reason why I believe that they're doing as well as they're doing now. And yeah, they were able to win a couple of shootouts earlier in the season. They were able to go up to Foxborough and beat the Patriots. But now it's division time. Now it's the Vikings time when they play them, and that's their next game. So we're going to see what the Panthers are really made of here the next in the last 4 games of the season. But I think they make it as a wild card, possibly with the Seahawks. But the Falcons are right there if they can pull off a victory over the Saints.
Yep. Oakland, New York, the Giants, Ben McAdoo did not return home with the team. Figuratively speaking, of course, they fired him immediately after that game, as they should have. And I'm left to wonder, the only thing I'm going to comment on this game, first of all, the Raiders barely beat a bad football team. So I think the Raiders' days are done. I think the Chiefs are going to break their losing streak this week against the Raiders. I'll get to that on Saturday. But this game... This game for me, Eric, the streak ended for what reason? Like, that's the part that irritates me the most. And really the only story in this Giant Raider game is that the streak is over because an idiot who doesn't know how to coach, who got a job for God knows what reason, and it certainly isn't because of his wealth of knowledge, Connie 1970, I think is the name. The guy's not a very smart football coach. And you don't get knowledge just because you have the title NFL head coach next to your name. Sometimes it is who you know. And the only reason McAdoo was hired, and this is for you, I want you to understand this so you know why everyone, not just me and Eric, are so critical of Ben McAdoo. Only reason this man was named head coach was because of his relationship that he had with Eli Manning. Not because of his offensive play calling duties or abilities. Not because he was some guru genius head coach to be. It's because he had a strong relationship with Eli Manning. And that was the only reason he was hired. And then as the season progressed, you saw that relationship completely deteriorate. And without that relationship, you were just left with an idiot who doesn't know how to cut his hair. That's it.
So, in this game, did the Giants score 17 more points than you thought they would?
Yeah. Yeah, they did.
Listen, as far as this game goes, yes, you're right. The Raiders barely beat a Giants team that started Geno Smith at quarterback. There's no reason why Eli should have been on the sidelines.
No.
Okay? Now, it's funny, in case you guys don't know, Anthony and I roomed together at Arizona State, and it was fun. We played on the old PlayStation. He was the coach, I was a GM/owner, and we'd go through, like, football moves together, and we took over the Jets just for, poops and giggles. And it was fun, just trying to get into the playoffs, and Anthony's like, all right, be the owner here, and we went through a season, and for some reason, Anthony couldn't make the playoffs. I'm like, you're fired. No, I'm kidding. But I was like, you have to look at, like, the whole output. Like I think we finished like 9-7 or 8-8. Like
10-6. No,
or something.
we were 10-6. We missed out due to a tiebreaker.
Oh, okay. 10-6 missed out to the tiebreaker. See, okay. To me, if I were ever an owner of a football franchise, I would talk when needed. I wouldn't need to be a Jerry Jones who has 3 different titles and needs to be in the locker room at every waking moment and be in everybody's business. And I know it's his team. I get it, okay? He's done a great job owning the Cowboys. He hasn't been to the Super Bowl in how long, but that's beyond the point. But there's certain times where an owner just needs to step back and watch. And then there's a time where an owner needs to step in because it's the right thing to do. John Mara, as soon as Ben McAdoo said, Eli Manning will not start today for this week, if I were John Mara, I'd held a press conference saying Ben McAdoo is relieved of his duties, Jerry Reese is relieved of his duties, and Eli Manning will start. Because there's no point in not starting Eli. Okay? I know Eli hasn't been the greatest this year, but that's, a lot of it has to do with injuries, but that's an excuse every other team can make. Okay? Has Eli been the best? No. Is Eli the best quarterback on that team? Yes. Big difference.
Well, the problem is, Eric, that Mara was the one that made the suggestion that Eli shouldn't play. But I think...
He did make the suggestion, yes, but then he said, I regret the way that it was handled.
Right.
Okay, which goes to show me that you didn't like the way McAdoo and Reese were running things and basically telling, Manning, hey, we're not going to start you, or why don't you just play the first half? And Manning thought it was a complete joke. Mm-hmm. And then that's when he should have stepped in and be like, you know what? I made a mistake. We're going to finish out the season and then evaluate from there. Right. That's the best thing you have to do. Because when you're 2-10, and the only teams you can beat are the Broncos and the Chiefs. Okay. Again, Wentz is not going to be able to win games because he's probably going to have a Nathan Peterman-like performance, and Geno Smith is not going to win you games either.
No. Well, I don't want to spend much more time on this game. Ben McAdoo's an idiot. The Raiders are lucky that they went against the Giants. We'll see how this week holds, week 14. Philadelphia at Seattle was the marquee game of the week. I'm going to give a lot of respect and credit here to the Seahawks. They won this game. I should say Russell Wilson won this game. The defense played well. They got good pressure on Carson Wentz. I made this statement earlier in the year when I did the crossover show with LT, Combat Sports LA. If you guys haven't subscribed, subscribe, and please watch his show. And Clash of the Horns, another great subscriber. You should watch his show and subscribe to him too. Kind of gave me a lot of, applauded this statement, which is when you look at Carson Wentz and Jared Goff, Carson Wentz hasn't gone through turmoil. He hasn't had to deal with a coach that didn't want him. He hasn't had to deal with a media that went, oh, you're a bust because you haven't played like Joe Montana from the 1989 season right out of the gate. You suck. Go away. We hate you. You're no good. You're a bust. And he's been surrounded by talent from day one. He's had the same coach and the same coordinator for consecutive years. You look at what Jared Goff's gone through, okay? A terrible situation with the coach, turmoil in the season, no clue on how to use him, an offensive system that was JV, junior high football at best. They had to get a new coach this year. The media was all over him. The fans were all over him. And then they had one of the hardest schedules for a second year in a row in his second year as a quarterback, and the most traveled football team in the NFL for the second year in a row. And yet he's gone out there and he's performed. Carson Wentz in Seattle was really his first big, stressful, marquee moment. And he was in the spotlight. And he wilted. And he missed throws. 21 points were taken off the board because of Carson Wentz in this game. The fumble in the end zone, the overthrow for a touchdown, and the misfire on a key third down that would have kept the drive going. That I believe the Eagles would have scored on that drive because they were starting to gain some momentum, and that would have been a big play. So at least 17 points off the board right there. Now they lost by 14. That means they win by a field goal on the road. So I think while everyone's like, oh, the Rams got to prove it, the Rams got to prove it, the Eagles have played what, Eric? You want to double check this on me, but I'm pretty sure this is right. They've only played 3 teams with a winning record this year, and they're 1-2, and their one win was at home. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember who they lost to.
I got their schedule here. Let me look at. I'm going to look at the schedule really quick. So Philadelphia's schedule at Washington, at Kansas City, they lost, and they're not even a winning team right now. Giants at the Chargers, Arizona at Carolina. Okay, did they beat Carolina? Yeah, I think they did. That was their win. Did they beat Carolina on Thursday night, or did they lose? They lost.
Yeah, no, they beat Carolina.
That's right. That was the win. So there's your third. Because then they got Washington, San Francisco, Denver, Dallas, Chicago, Seattle. So they're 1-2, and really not even that. They're 1-1 against teams with a winning record. They've only played 2 teams with a winning record this year. That's it. 2. Like, and then you look at what the Rams have had to go through. I just think the Rams are more battle-tested. And I think Jared Goff has proven it because he's done it against better competition all year long. And, it's funny to me because Philadelphia is an East Coast team. They get a pass. They could play Podunk University in the Blind Institute of the Deaf and Dumb. And they're going to be, oh, they won by 30. Look how great they are. Meanwhile, the Rams beat the Colts and it's a JV team. It's that East Coast, West Coast bias. But I give a lot of credit to Seattle. But to me, Philadelphia, this week in LA, we're going to find out what the Eagles are made of. Because if they don't win this game, I think we need to seriously consider the Eagles as the 4th best team in the NFC. Maybe even the 5th best, because if the Seahawks do make it, I'll give the edge to Seattle. Not just because they beat them, but because they beat them down. But it's really my takeaway from the game is we learned a lot about Philly, and it ain't good. What did you take away?
I took away that the Eagles took a Rocky Balboa uppercut to the face. It's exactly what the Seahawks did. Okay, and the Seahawks were Apollo Creed in the first Rocky, and they basically showed Rocky what was going on. They're like, you're not coming to my house, and you might be 10-1, but you're not leaving here. You're not leaving here with a W. Yeah, they had a couple of big missed plays. That fumble was killer out of the back of the end zone. And Wentz just barely overthrowing guys. Like he hadn't done that all year. He's been pretty much spot on, especially hitting Aguilar, and that's who he missed. That's who he overthrew. And hitting Jeffrey, and Ertz left the game with a concussion. So he had a weapon already out of that game, and it didn't really help him the best because of he couldn't go down the middle of the field like he wanted to. But the Seahawks defense, it looked like they had everybody there just the way they were playing, but of course they didn't. Yeah. So when I look at that game, they couldn't even get the run game going, and I thought the Eagles' run defense was actually pretty good, but then Mike Davis just kind of went off, and he looked like a little human joystick out there playing Madden, and he was having guys miss tackles. He was juking guys. He was like, here, have the A button. Oh, here, the B button. And Mike Davis looked like a little kid again. Russell Wilson just played a spectacular game hitting Jimmy Graham. Jimmy Graham was basically bullying Eagles defenders all over the place in that game. And he had himself a great game. He has reestablished himself as a big weapon in the red zone, and that is dangerous for Seattle opponents. Okay? You just need a big body on Graham, and that's even hard to put on him because he's healthy now, and he's making plays, and Russell Wilson is looking for him in the end zone, and if you get him one-on-one, forget about it. Okay? Give Seattle a ton of credit because they went in and they're like, all right, we're going to be showcasing. And I don't know, there's something about playing in Seattle where yes, you can win, and teams have done it before. In Russell Wilson's time, he's lost 8 games at home in the last 3 years or 4 years. So, Philadelphia was due for a loss, and they did the right thing after the game by staying on the West Coast. I don't like the whole wildfire situation with what's going on in California right now. A lot of smog, a lot of haze, a lot of smoke, and obviously that's not good for the players when they're breathing in that air when they're practicing. So I'm just curious on how that's going to have an effect when they play the Rams. And I'm not saying the Rams are the sequel to what the Eagles just played, but it could be more or less like another heavyweight title bout against the Rams. And you know what? The Rams have a better offense in Seattle, so I expect more of a shootout. But if Philadelphia leaves the West Coast 0-2 in this stretch, I know they've already been to LA to play the Chargers. But if they leave 0-2, yeah, you're right. You start looking at Philly saying, who have you really beaten? Are they a fluke, or are they going to wilt under the pressure? And it's just going to be interesting to see how it is come playoff time. They start playing better and better teams.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious, with Philly, how they respond to a little adversity and a big loss. But like I said, staying on the West Coast might help them. So I'm not saying that's going to be the key to beating the Rams, because it's not. But it's just a lot less travel on your body, which definitely helps during a week.
Well, this 4-game stretch helps the Rams too, because they were home, away to Arizona, home, and then they go to Seattle, which is, not that far either. But another thing I didn't mention is that the Rams did snap the Saints' 8-game winning streak, so it's not like they beat a weak team either in that situation. Not that we already knew that, but Pittsburgh, Cincinnati. I'm going to say right now, so everyone understands, I'm old school. What I saw on Monday night was old school football. And I don't normally agree with Steeler players, but I forget the guy's name today that was being interviewed.
Mike Mitchell.
Yeah. He's 100% right. Let him play with flags so they understand what the rules are then. He's going to hit a guy. He mentioned the Tyler Eifert hit a year ago. That wasn't dirty. It was a bad throw by Dalton, and it got the guy injured. I have no problem with the hitting that was going on. The Juju Smith-Schuster block, that was dirty. But that's been the Steelers' MO. I find it really funny that the Steelers are held in such high regard. This is an organization that has never won with class, and they've never lost with class. They are as dirty as it gets. Go back to Blunt. They had to change the way DBs played football because Blunt was breaking rules left and right and was just basically cheating. Okay? But then they turned around and said the Raiders were the dirty team. You look at this iteration of the Steelers, you have the Tom Brady rule, which, let's face it, they can call it the Carson Palmer rule till they're blue in the face. They didn't make the rule change till it was Tom Brady's knee. But you had that knee injury where the guy, Okafor, I think is his name, or whatever it was, O'Keefer. Yeah, Olaf clearly went for the knee. It was intentional and dirty to take the quarterback out, and nobody had a problem with it then. Then you've got the Hines Ward rule. Then you've got the Shazier rule. Okay, and then you have the Juju Smith-Schuster situation. And I'm just sitting there going, when are we going to call a spade here? There's so many reasons I hate the Pittsburgh Steelers. And it has nothing to do with them being good. It has nothing to do with them being in a consistently weak division. Outside of 88 through 90, or 87 through 90, that's been one. I'll go 86. I'll be generous. From 86 to 90, that division was good. After that, it's been a 2-horse race every single year. And sometimes that horse is Cincinnati. Sometimes that horse is Baltimore. I watch this game and I sit there and I'm like, you have no reason to sit there and complain. Burfett, I can't say his name. The Bengal linebacker. He is a product. Yeah, Burfett. He is a product of what the Steelers have brought to the table. Okay? You push a man against the wall and you start socking him in the face, it's only a matter of time before he punches back. That's what that linebacker in Cincinnati is. He's the Bengals' response to the Steelers getting away with dirty, no good, outright disgusting, unethical football for decades. And we're going to get pissed off at him? And then this game, Exhibit A, Juju Smith-Schuster. And then we're going to sit there and say that these other hits that happened by the Steelers defense and by the Bengals defense is dirty football. I wasn't uncomfortable with it. I was uncomfortable with it a little bit, but only because I know what the rules are now. And I don't know how you stop a human being at 260 pounds going 18 miles an hour, how you stop him in mid-flight and have him redirect his body in another direction to avoid contact. I don't know how it happens. It's the physics alone are impossible, but it's the expectation. Understand you sign a contract. You play a collision sport, not a contact sport. If you can't handle it, don't play. Don't sign the contract. I played. I got a grade 4 concussion. It's part of the deal. You knew it was coming. How many NFL players in years past are still alive and ticking and doing just fine with no CTE? Yeah, you've got a handful that do. And most of them, by the way, are from the steroid era, which is from 1975 to present. Yes, I said it, present. Because these guys aren't just doing steroids. They're using it as milk in their cereal and then going and lifting weights. And then injecting it in their buttocks and lifting more weights. And then injecting it in their chicken, eating it, and you guessed it, lifting more weights. You got punters on steroids nowadays. This is a whole other era of steroids. This is, we're on it, we know it, you know it. This is WWE. Oh no, they're not on steroids. They're just lifting hard. Did anybody believe that in the WWE and the WCW? Did anybody see a wrestler and went, that's a guy who works out? Or did you look at a wrestler and went, yeah, they're on steroids? It's the same in the NFL. I would argue 98% of these guys are on steroids. So you're going to have concussions because we don't know what other effects that drug has, except we do know it drains cerebral fluid from the brain and uses it for the body. When you have less fluid in the brain, your brain isn't sloshing around anymore. It's bunking around. And when it bunks around, you get bruises. And when you get bruises, that's called a concussion. It's not hard. So I look at this game and I go, yeah, there were moments where it got uncomfortable. Juju Smith-Schuster, I'm not going to call him a punk. He's a young kid. You don't stand over a guy when you did a dirty shot. You took a cheap shot, you walk away. Period. You saw the back of his number. You hit him in the head. And you're going to sit there and complain that Gronkowski, another thing we didn't even talk about in the New England game, or maybe we did. I don't remember if we talked about it yesterday, where you took the cheap shot. Yeah, we did. Right? I mean, obviously these things are unethical and not okay. That would have been illegal in 1962, what Gronkowski did. But what's funny is, these teams don't get penalties. Was Juju Smith-Schuster penalized for his hit?
Yep.
Okay, that's good. I didn't know if he was or not. I'm torn. Let him play. They know the risks. You want to stop the concussions? You want to stop CTE? Stop the steroid use. Stop the steroid use. I'm watching a game from 1988. There's a wide receiver who's 169 pounds. And he's considered one of the better receivers in the NFL. And they're not talking about how small he is. You couldn't make a college roster at 169. Stop the steroids. Then you'll stop CTE and you'll stop all the concussions. But if you want to continue to pretend like these guys are just phenomenal athletes that lift and have been lifting their whole life and that's why they're big, then continue to play stupid. Continue to play naive and stupid. You probably believe that wrestling is real too, and that it's not practiced and rehearsed. So, I have proof. Watch boxing. Punched in the face repeatedly. In the face, in the face, in the face, in the face, 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 face. No concussions. Why? Getting shot in the face with a hand and an 8-ounce pound glove. bada bing, bada bing, bada bing, 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 bing. No concussion. Guy flies around, nicks a helmet, grazes the ground, mostly shoulder, out for a week with a concussion. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Anyway, that's my rant for this game. Steelers won. Congratulations, you beat another pathetic football team. Let me know when you decide to play an NFL schedule. So yeah, you're 10-2. Good job, Pittsburgh. New England and Pittsburgh 2 weeks from now. What I'm going to call the overinflated matchup bowl. Because whoever wins is going to get home field advantage. And all you get when you win the AFC this year is congratulations. Who's getting their teeth kicked in by the NFC this year? So that's my 2 cents. You're the Steeler fan. Take it away, E.
Did you see the George Iloka hit on Antonio Brown?
I heard about it. I did not see it, no.
Yeah, it was another one of those where Brown caught it, got nailed. They called basically helmet-to-helmet hit. And it looked like it was. So now the NFL, after seeing what Schuster-Smith did and Iloka did, the NFL is now considering the targeting rule that they have in college, which I think is
ridiculous,
a BS move.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, this is a game the Steelers are lucky to win. Cincinnati had this game. They were up double digits at one point. They only scored 3 points in the second half. And, Pittsburgh just wanted it more. Cincinnati gave it away. Listen, I don't think Marvin Lewis is going to be much longer in Cincinnati. He actually does not have a contract that extends past this year.
No, he's done.
So he technically has that lame duck status. He's had a good run in Cincinnati. Somehow he's found a way to stay there for so long and, get to the playoffs a couple times and not have sustained success. But, that's what happens when you're pretty in deep with the front office. So I don't expect him to get an extension. I don't know what else to say about this game.
Well, let me.
Hold on.
Go ahead.
If you guys listened last week, okay, you would have heard me say that I was, and I didn't want to really bring it up, but I said that watch out for Vontaze Burfict. He's always good for a cheap shot or two. Man, if I would have known that it was going to be him getting cheap shotted, I probably would have said you were joking or I would have laughed. When I saw that hit, listen, I thought it was a good, clean hit to myself. But then when I saw Schuster-Smith standing over him, taunting him, that's where it draws the line for me. You make the block, you go under where the ball is.
Yeah.
That's basically, what you do. You don't stand over the guy. You don't be like, oh, ha, ha, ha. Apparently after he was carted off, he wanted to get up and say that he was fine. So, I'm not sure how much I believe on that if he could get back in the game. But after that, there was no way he was coming back. I do also want to point out that, I want to offer up some thoughts and prayers to Ryan Shazier.
Yeah.
Yes, he went in for a tackle, what I believe is the wrong way, and he led with his head. He laid motionless on the turf. Got some feeling in his legs at the Cincinnati hospital. He actually just had spinal surgery to make sure his spine was okay. So he's going to be out most likely the rest of the year. They didn't say it was career threatening, but if he makes it back by next year, I'll be kind of shocked. But I just want to offer a little thoughts and prayers to Shazier. He's a good football player. He plays 100% all the time. Yeah, he tackled one time the wrong way, but like I said, he's a good football player. He's good on that Steelers defense, and he's made a name for himself. So all the best to him and his family. But like I said, Pittsburgh is going to miss him when they face the Ravens next Monday night or Sunday night. I'm not sure which exactly.
Sunday.
Monday night. Sunday night is. Sunday night. And then against the Patriots as well. They're really going to miss their leader on defense.
I bet you that game gets flexed for the Sunday night game. Because we know it's not going to be the Rams and Eagles because, the go-to sixer. And look, as far as Shazier goes, I agree.
Oh, so they would have already flexed it. They usually really flex those games out more than a week in advance.
No, that's why I said they're not going to flex the Rams. They knew they weren't. I said that last week. It was you had one of the go-to 6 teams in the slot. They're not going to do that. But anyway, I just wanted to say, to reiterate what you said about Shazier, thoughts and prayers to the family. You don't ever want to see a player, especially one that could potentially be crippling or life-threatening. So thoughts and prayers go out to the family, and God bless you, and may you have a speedy recovery, and may you do what's best for your family and not your career, which I'll get into here in a minute, because it was another tweet that I thought was beautifully put. I'm not going to comment much on this. Sasha Brown and the Cleveland Browns parted ways. Analytics does not work in football. It's about how people perform. This is why the Combine is a joke. This is why Sasha Brown is a joke. Dee Podesta is a joke. The Cleveland Browns organization is a joke. And as a guy who follows the Browns, that's probably the only team in the AFC I really, really like. I have no respect for this organization and what they've done. I could have told you, I did tell you, and Eric, I told you when they made the hire that analytics isn't going to work in football because it's too much of what an individual is able to do, rising above the courage and playing at a high level. You can't determine that based off of numbers. And
listen, Dave Podesta was the wrong hire at the beginning, and everybody knew that. Even football pundits are like, "What are the Browns doing?" But they could have hired me at half the salary, and I could have done a better job.
Yeah, no kidding. Roger Goodell. I'm going to say 2 things on this. First of all, 3 things. Number 1, kudos to the Steeler player that was like, "Oh yeah, health insurance for life." You know who doesn't get health insurance for life? Shazier for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Kudos to that tweet, because the balls on that individual are epic. They're epically large. You better believe that the players are going to lock out coming up. And I'll tell you why.
Oh, it's not the players, it's the owners.
No, the players will lock out. They will strike. They won't play. Because I'm telling you right now, if the next CBA doesn't have lifetime health insurance for every athlete, they're walking out. Because they can point at Roger Goodell and say, him and his children get lifetime health insurance, and we don't? No. Unbelievable. Second, Jimmy Jones won. I'll get to why Jimmy Jones won in a minute. Thirdly, let me just get to Jimmy Jones. Jimmy Jones won. That contract is loaded with incentives. Yeah, he can make $20 million or he can make $4 million. He's got to meet a lot of numbers that he ain't going to meet. Have you seen the ratings? Have you seen the stadiums? He ain't going to make it. So kudos to Jimmy Jones because he won that one. Jerry Jones. Saying Jimmy Jones. Jerry Jones. Jerry Jones won that one. I'm telling you, he won that one. Brings me to my third thing. You just gave a man a contract extension who has politicized the sport and split its fan base in half. You've got people boycotting the NFL because they won't bring Kaepernick onto a football team, and you've got people boycotting the NFL because the players are taking a knee. So you've effectively not only split the fan base, but then you've alienated them both so they don't want to go to the games. Really good job. You've oversaturated the market with Thursday night football. You have a Sunday night football package that's a joke and it's laughable. The Rams and Vikings were left off of the Thursday night flex. The Rams and Saints were left off of the Thursday night flex. And the Rams and Eagles were left off of the Thursday night flex. You had 3 opportunities to get marquee matchups with teams that were 8-2, 9-3, respected, marquee matchups from the NFC, which is largely considered the best division in the best conference in the league. You left them off. But
I think you mean Sunday night.
That's what I said. The Sunday night package.
You said Thursday night.
No, I said the Thursday night package. I said it's oversaturated with the Thursday night package, and they bungled the Sunday night package. And it's not just the Ram and Eagles, or not just the Rams that have been left off. First of all, the Rams were the second largest market in football, and you don't have them playing a single Sunday night game or a single Monday night game, and yet you want the sport to be successful in LA. Are you joking me? Are you kidding? The Chargers and Rams, the Chargers.
Maybe if you sell out the Coliseum.
Dude, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You've got the second largest market in sports, and you've left it off of prime time 2 years in a row. Secondly, there isn't anybody in football that's going to sell out the LA Coliseum. It's a 90,000 seat stadium. And when you let me rephrase that. There isn't a team in the NFL that's going to sell out the LA Coliseum when every time the fans tune into the NFL Network, they hear, Rams are garbage, Rams are garbage, Rams are garbage, Rams are garbage. Yeah, I'm not going to go. I'm not going to spend money on a ticket when you're telling me the team is garbage and you're the source that I'm supposed to rely on because you have all the knowledge. I'm sorry. You're not going to get a family of 4 to spend $9,000 on a ticket to a team that sucks. You're just not. You're not. The Lakers don't sell out when they're garbage. The Kings don't sell out when they're garbage. And you damn well better believe the NFL isn't going to sell out when you're making them out to be garbage. And the Rams still are disrespected. And put the Ram equation away, they're still bundling the Chargers. You don't put the Chargers on Sunday night? And that's a team that you said was going to be in the playoffs this year? No Sunday night or Monday night game at all. None. Zero. Not one. Are you joking me? Or are you kidding me? So you've got a commissioner that has completely screwed this sport. And I believe the NFL under Roger Goodell has dropped so dramatically that you've now got the NBA, which is a farce and everyone knows it. It's a 2-team race every single year and it's boring as hell to watch. You've got baseball, which everyone complains how boring of a sport it is, both outperforming the NFL right now. Like it's not even close. And you give the commissioner who's overseen this drop and been directly responsible for this drop, and I haven't even gotten into player discipline. You gave him a contract extension? If me and you performed the way Roger Goodell performed, we would be fired and said, thank you for your services. Your services are no longer required. Good luck in your future endeavors. But this a-hole gets health insurance for life, a helicopter, insurance for his family, and potential for $20 million, but at worst $4 million a year. Somebody made this comment. Roger Goodell will have made, by the end of this contract, if he meets all of his numbers, which I don't think he will, over $500 million. You're telling me Roger Goodell is more important to football than Tom Brady? Okay. Yeah. I've never liked Roger Goodell. Ever since he came in, he's been wanting to change the sport and make it something it isn't. He has not addressed the steroid issue. He's encouraged steroid use. This concussion thing was easily prevented. You could have just come out and said, look, it's not a concussion problem, it's a steroid problem. We're aware of it, and we're going to do everything we can to stop it. And yeah, you're going to bite the bullet like baseball did. I'm convinced that the baseball steroid thing scared the NFL to death. And they figured, you know what? We'd rather deal with concussions than deal with steroids. Because there isn't a single person out there, Eric, that doesn't believe steroids and concussions are linked. Anybody that's done the research. Anyway, that's my shtick on Goodell.
The only thing I want to add to this believe Goodell got an extension is because from what I have heard and read is that they didn't want a different commissioner for when the CBA expired after the 2021 season. That they wanted to keep Goodell around to oversee part of those negotiations. Now, from what I've been hearing as well, a lot from DeMaurice Smith, is that it's not going to go well from the player side, and that it's going to get ugly.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is one reason why I think that they signed Goodell to make sure that he oversaw it and that he could see the next couple of years if the CBA gets extended and they don't walk out or strike.
Well, the players are damned if they do and they're damned if they don't. They're either going to get pwned by this idiot and look like fools yet again and continue to complain even though they agreed to a CBA, or they're going to strike. And if they strike, the National Football League is dead. Because you've got the African-American community that's really upset with the NFL for the way that they handled Colin Kaepernick. You've got the rest of the NFL fan base divided and angered over the kneeling. And then you're going to throw a strike in when you've got guys making $140 million and your ticket prices are outrageous and your parking's $100 and you can't bring anything into the stadium unless it's in a clear 4x4 bag. So women have to basically say, look at my tampons that I'm bringing to the game because I'm currently bleeding, as if that's what they want everyone to know. There's a reason those bags aren't clear, which is why less and less women go to games. It's not family friendly. It hasn't been for a long time. That's going to be a death knell because you can only piss off so many fans before you run out of people to pay your bills. And the worst business model one can put out there is let's anger the customers so badly they want nothing to do with our product. Because I hate to tell the NFL, there's college football. Sorry. And if college football goes away, there's still high school football. And if high school football goes away, well, who cares? There's hockey. You watch. Hockey will definitely pick up fans. So, because it's the next collision sport on the docket. So, I could get into a political rant. I'm not going to. But I will tell you that this is going down a road no one wants to see it go down. And, you made the bed, now you got to sleep in it.
Yep.
So this is the conundrum the players are under. And the conundrum that the commissioner is under is, does he continue to take bullets for the owners? Because there's a lot of people that feel like that's why he got the contract too, is because he gets all the criticism and the owners don't get any of it. And, when the owners decided to stand in solidarity against Donald Trump, pissing off a lot of people. Because let's face it, that's why they did it. They didn't do it because they were trying to show solidarity for kneeling for the flag. They did it in protest of Donald Trump. They made the ultimate political statement in a sport that has long been revered for not being political. I was upset with the kneeling long before Trump brought it up. I understood why the players did it, which is why I kept watching. And as I said before, I didn't watch it because I had family in the military, and out of respect for them, I was going to take Veterans Weekend off from football and spend it with my family. But I'm back and I'm watching it. There's a lot of people that tuned it off a long time ago, and a lot of people tuned it off after they decided to make that statement. But the owners didn't get the criticism. Who got the criticism? Roger Goodell. The best business models are ones that say whether you're Republican, whether you're Democrat, whether you're black, white, Chinese, Indian, whatever, come one, come all, buy our product. Those are the models that are successful. when you sit there and you decide to alienate one group or multiple groups, ball game. That's when companies go under. So let's hope that's not going to happen. I love football because as a coach and as a player, it taught me a long time ago that I only care about two things. I care about the content of one's character, and I care that they care as much as I do. And as long as they do that, I don't care if they're male, female, black, white, pink, purple, Republican, Democrat, atheist, Catholic, Christian, Muslim. It doesn't matter. We're in it together, and let's do this. You know, I never talked politics when I played or coached, and yet here we are today. And I think Goodell was largely given the contract extension maybe solely for the fact that he's been taking bullets for the owners, while the owners have been getting more and more vocal about their political positions. And let's face it, there's a lot of owners out there that are conservative, and that's pissed off a lot of Democratic fans too, fans that are Democrats. So this isn't a Republican-only or Democrat-only situation. It's bringing that politics into the sport has pissed everyone off. Maybe that's something to do with it. I don't know, E. What do you think?
Hard to say. I mean, you know, there are single fans no matter what type of topic is talked about. So, you know, you can't please everybody. You can just hope that you can, you know, kind of get everybody seeing everything on the same page. And, you know, in football, that's been hard to come by the last few years. And, you know, they've really bungled players kneeling or sitting for the national anthem, players being suspended and how they go about it. Because, let's face it, you're going to suspend a quarterback 4 games for what you think he had to do with deflating footballs, but then Gronkowski does a cheap shot and Schuster Smith does a cheap shot, well, maybe not much of a cheap shot, but taunting, and they get 1 game each. And Ray Rice gets 2 games for domestic abuse, but then the video surfaces, so then he's suspended for pretty much now his whole life. There were 6 games, I believe, that it went up to, but now he's been blackballed out of football. It's just, you know, Ezekiel Elliott, there's another thing. You know, Goodell just put that power, and, you know, he's gone about certain decisions, you know, the wrong way.
Well, how about this? How about the Adrian Peterson situation? Look, I played football. I have a lot of black friends, okay? Over the years, having played, having coached, my parents are very similar, being Italian, to an African-American parent. You pull a switch off the hickory, I'm going to whip you with it. And if it breaks when I'm whipping you, I'm going to pick the next one. Like, that's just discipline. And, okay, I understand for some people that makes them uncomfortable. But, you know, you start stepping into how one should parent, and you suspend a guy for a year for that action. You know, for somebody like me, I got whooped with a belt buckle, for crying out loud. And I'm better for it. Now, my father taught me discipline, and I feared my father, and I respected authority. Now, somebody out there listening to this may be like, oh no, Anthony, I completely disagree. You can't do that. That's your call. That's how you choose to parent. Good on you. But there are other parents out there that have used physical discipline on their child, and maybe it goes a step, you know, a bridge too far, but more often than not, it doesn't. And yeah, when you get hit with a switch, it's going to leave a mark. You get hit with a buckle, it's going to leave plenty of marks. So I don't know enough about the Adrian Peterson situation to say Adrian Peterson was in the wrong, and that's ridiculous. And at the same time, neither did the other side. Just because you don't whip your kids, don't mean he don't. And just because he whips his kid, doesn't mean he doesn't love his kid, and doesn't mean he's not a good parent. I'm sorry. That's how life works. We can't tell people how to parent. Now, when it crosses a line, it crosses a line. Now, I may be wrong on this. Somebody may be listening to this and they're going to type me a novel. Do it. I'll be the first to admit I don't know the situation on that. I do know that upset a lot of fans too, especially the African American community, because they heard what happened and went, what's wrong with that? That's how I was raised. That's how I raised my kids. And you're going to suspend Adrian Peterson for a year on that? Now again, somebody might be typing a novel saying, no, Anthony, this is all that happened. You're wrong. Okay, then I'm wrong. Be the first to admit it. I'm not too proud. I just said earlier, I don't know enough about the situation to react one way. I do know a lot of people who were in my boat did react aggressively in a negative way to that decision. And it cost the man an entire season. And was it warranted? I don't know. But it piggybacks off your point, Eric, that this man makes rash decisions based off of information, not based off of facts. And here we go again. So there's been a lot that's gone on in the NFL in the last 4 years. Do you have anything to add on the contract with Goodell, or are we done?
No, we're good.
Okay. All right. Well, Eric, so much for going short, huh?
Yeah, no kidding.
Sorry, guys. We hope you liked the extremely long episode, even though we only had so many games to go. Oh, we didn't even do the New Orleans-Atlanta game. I'm picking the Falcons. Oh, we did already, didn't we?
Yeah, I got the tapes.
All right. Simply put, Atlanta has to win. This is it. Their playoffs begin now. By the way, last year this time they were 7-5 and rolled off 4 in a row and went to the Super Bowl. Just FYI on that. So I still picked them to win the Super Bowl, but not anymore. But I do still think they'll make the playoffs. Why are you picking the Saints, E?
I like their offense and defense better. You know, the Falcons are always good for a couple of turnovers. Matt Ryan just hasn't been the same himself. And, you know, I think Ingram, Kamara, could have a good game. So we'll see how it works out.
Well, let me tell you how it worked out. I'm going to pull up the score right now.
Well, it's 17-17 in the fourth quarter, 4.5 minutes left to go.
How perfect is that? How perfect is that? So we don't know who's right yet. So.
And Alvin Kamara actually got injured on the first series with a concussion. He's out for the game.
Well, I hope he's okay, because the NFL desperately needs that guy. He is a phenomenal football player. Hopefully, it's just precautionary. He's really okay, and he's already kind of tested out of the protocol, but they're keeping him out due to potential re-injury. That's my hope. So, all right, buddy. Well, that's a wrap for LA Rams Central. I'm Anthony.
And I'm Eric.
And go Rams!